How's it going, everybody? This is BeatTheBush. Over the years, I've collected a lot of portable power stations, mainly through sponsorship of this channel. And as I'm collecting them, they're not just sitting in the storage or anything, I'm actually using them daily. So if you just look at the product page, oh, how many ports, how many watts, how many watt hours, you don't really know how reliable they are. Today, I'm gonna go through all of the corner cases that I know of, and by the time you finish this video, you'll be an expert in portable power stations. I'd like to thank BLUETTI for this sponsorship of this video. They provided me with this 2000 watt hour portable power bank. To use this 300 watt output, you'll need to buy an optional cable that connects to this, 120 watt 12 volt car charger, and up to 36 watt DC 5521 port. You have two of them, a 60 watt PD type C port, two 15 watt USB-A, another two 15 watt under this port, and up to 2000 watts across these 6 AC output ports. All of them have the higher current T-shape in the neutral prong. The T-shape means you can pump up to 20 amps through this plug, meaning you can draw all 2000 watts from one single plug. This one is 150 watts. Maybe it can power a laptop, but that's it. The next step up is any of these sort of mid-size power banks, 300 watt and higher. With these, I can start powering entertainment centers, and then you can pass your time that way if there's a power outage. When you get to 2000 watt hour like the BLUETTI, you can start power things like cooktops or microwaves. This 1500 watt one won't power my microwave. This one certainly won't as well. My microwave consumes 1800 watts. So you definitely need 2000 watt output in order to power one. I use the PowerNest one, this one, this one, and this one. It's a brand that's not too well known, and when I tested the capacity, it was actually 30% less than what's stated on the Amazon page. Now, even if I subtract out the inefficiencies, it still doesn't match up, but that's not actually the only problem. After using the PowerNest ones for a month or two, they actually stop charging when it gets too hot. But if I let it rest for like a week, somehow it miraculously can charge again. Let me put those away. And I've talked about this Wilpes one. Somehow the inverter is only good up to about 800 watts or so. And when using it, I can also hear like a buzzing sound when I'm pushing it really hard. So a bit of an issue outputting the maximum wattage. Other than that, it still works, and I've had much worse problems than this one. This is an EcoFlow, not quite their problem, but it's more of a usage problem. It's a 768 watt hour power bank. It's called the River 2 Pro, so it's a fairly new unit that just came out. The thing that you don't really think about is what if you pull too much wattage out of the device even though it doesn't support it? What happens? It says it can output 800 watts, but I plugged in a laser printer, which at maximum it's like 900 watts. Surge current might be a little bit high. And the first time I did that, it actually bricked the unit. It was kind of my fault, but I don't think power banks should actually break if you go over the wattage. It should somehow have some way to turn off the output so that it doesn't brick itself. You have to be more careful with the wattage you pull out of these things because it does not have the protection circuitry. With this larger EcoFlow, it's a Delta Max. I've gone over the wattage plenty of times. It would actually shut off the AC output and everything gets reset. And that's a good thing because it prevents it from damaging itself. In the beginning, I had some issues connecting it to Wi-Fi, but after some firmware updates, it's pretty reliable these days. Probably cycling it once a day because it's been powering my fridge for a really long time. The drawback with this one is if you are charging it, even at the lowest setting, which is 200 watts, you cannot power anything like a microwave when it's charging. There's some kind of limit for the pass-through mode. And when that happens, as long as you stop the AC charging, then you can use all 2000 watts again. For this one, I'm actually gonna test it very, very soon. But for this All Powers power bank, it's actually bricked. I can't use it. It just died all on its own. I didn't go over current or anything. One day it just stopped charging. It got really hot and I can smell like a little bit of electronics. So something went wrong with this device. Even if the design is very good, there's always gonna be some units that fail initially. It's a bathtub curve, which means that the initial reliability is very, very bad. And then after a really long time, the reliability is really bad again when everything fails. So that's why they try to burn in devices. They turn them on, they run them very hard just to get all the initial products to fail first so that the products that they do ship is very reliable. Let's first look at these two DC5521 connectors. I've only used it one time, and I think there's an opportunity to use them a lot more. What's a DC5221? It means the outer diameter of the barrel connector is 5.5 millimeters, and the inside pin is 2.1 millimeters. Here's a DC5521 to DC5521 connector. These can be had on Amazon for a few dollars each, or you can go with a pigtail version and wire in your 12 volts. Just make sure the wattage is less than the rated on your power bank. Let's plug one in. Fits nicely in both holes. Now, why would you even try to use these connectors here? Most of my devices actually uses the USB connector. If not, you just plug it into the AC, right? The reason you want to use the barrel connector is because then you're not converting DC to AC and then back to DC again. USB can actually support a lot of wattage as well, but the barrel connector is sort of like legacy support, so you can still power a lot of things that uses that. I don't have many devices that accepts these 12 volt barrel connectors. The only one I can find is this massage chair. There is a DC5221 connector right here, and it actually comes with an AC adapter. The output is 12 volt, 2.5 amps, so this Blue Yeti will run this massager. If it comes with this, you can just plug it into the 12 volt hole. It's the same as the 3 amp one, except it can supply more power. But if you have one of these, you can plug directly in, plug it into this massage chair. I gotta turn on the DC on and turn on the power on this thing. Check that out. Crazy, right? It works. Currently, 27 watts is being used. Still, why would you want to plug it into that hole? You could plug in the AC over here, like this. The issue is, watch, if I turn it on, now it's using 36 watts. Whenever you go through an AC plug like this or turn on the AC inverter, you waste some energy. In my experience, the AC inverter of like 2 kilowatts uses about 20 to 30 watts. So as long as the inverter is on, it's just gonna keep on consuming power and not really do anything, even if you don't plug anything in. This itself has a maximum efficiency of 90%. That means as soon as you go through this, you are wasting 10%. So the reason you want to use these DC connectors as much as possible is because you can have more efficiency. That means you can use your battery bank longer, and who wouldn't want that? As long as you're smart about it, wow, all of a sudden you have more capacity than before. Another place you can use those 12 volt DC barrel connectors is your home internet router. My AT&T router is 12 volt, 3 amps, the exact specification on the BLUETTI. Let's see if the plug will fit. Is it the same? Oh no, it won't fit actually. But if you get a converter from this to this, it will work. Speaking of conversion efficiency, if you're running out of juice or you're just trying to save power, you probably don't want to go for wireless charging. Put this on. These wireless chargers uses about 2 times the amount as AC wall plugs. So avoid these if you're trying to conserve battery or save energy overall. On the left side is where you charge the power station. One of them is for your AC adapter. The other one is for your solar panels. Now you gotta open up this little cap. It's more water resistant that way. Let's get the power bank over here. It seems like you gotta be pretty strong to lift this thing. It's 60 pounds. And this is no joke either. 34 pounds for the Blue Yeti 420 watt solar panel. It's huge. Let me set this thing up. You can set it to 35, 45, 55 degrees or closed. Closed is like this, and it sticks right there. So when you want it to, let's say set it to 45, you buckle it in, and you put it right there. And there are 3 stands across this. And go grab the cables, connect the MC4 cables together. XT90 connected. Aviation plug. You plug it in here. I'm gonna try to optimize this. You just kind of move this front and back until you get the maximum shadow. And I think this is pretty maximized already, just from my guess. The LCD is a little bit reflective, so it's hard to see. If I block the sun, we can see a little bit better. 350 watts. It's about 3 p.m. right now, and the sun, it's not blaring, but it's pretty close to the rated 420 watts. So it's pretty resistant to partial shading, like from buildings or whatnot. If you cover half of the panel, you're still gonna get half of the wattage output. If I go and cover up one of the panels, we'll see how much wattage it gives. And then maybe I'll try to cover up 2, if you're partially covered, like this. Depending on how the solar panel is wired, sometimes if you partially cover one of them, all the rest won't generate any more electricity. So you got this AC adapter. You can buy another one, which is optional. Put that into this port. The one that comes with it, you can put it into this port. It's about 480 watt output. For the car charging, it only goes up to 100 watts. But for the solar charging, you can go up to 700 watts. You can also buy an adapter that goes from this 7909 into XT90. 7909 refers to the outer diameter is 7.9 millimeter. I can't quite reach in there, but the pin looks to be about 0.9 millimeter in diameter. So that's why they call this 7909. The XT90 connectors are called that way because they can handle up to 90 amps continuous current. Seems to be overkill to me. It might just be for mechanical reasons because it just feels a lot sturdier. From the wall, we're taking 515 watts, but only 450 is reaching the BLUETTI. This is 87.3% efficiency. So the conversion of AC to DC using this box costs you about 12.7% of energy. It's burnt up in here. This is generating heat. So you got about a 65 watt heater just sitting here. I actually want to do this for the first time on camera because I don't know if I'm going to break this thing. You can go up to 2500 watts for about 2 minutes before it'll turn off. If you go above 2500 watts, it'll turn off immediately. So let's give this a try. Turn on the heater. It's at 1300 watts. I can turn on this thing at minimum. It's up to 2000 watts now. So let's go a little bit higher, 2665. It says inverter overload, but I'm gonna turn it off. It actually performs surprisingly well because I had it on over 2500 watts for like 10 seconds. The next thing we want to try out is the switch over speed. Usually when you plug things in, there's an AC pass-through mode. So it takes energy straight from the wall and comes out of these ports. The best I've seen in switchover speed in power banks is about 10 milliseconds. That power bank is the one that stopped working, so it doesn't really matter how fast it switches if it stops working. Typically, the switchover speed is 30 milliseconds. Usually for PCs that doesn't have backup battery, you need 10 milliseconds or faster. Otherwise, the computer might turn off. There might be an error or something because you're not getting power. For laptops, it doesn't really matter too much because it has a built-in battery. But the thing we want to test now is we want to plug lights into this, and while it's charging, we yank the plug on it. In other words, the power goes out, and we want to see if the light bulb flickers. For 30 millisecond switchover speed, you can perceive the little flicker. Now, I'm going to turn on 2 light bulbs. It's probably around 16 watts right now, and it's registering 0. So there's a little bit of problem detecting very low wattage. I'm going to turn it on 3 light bulbs. It should be 24 watts. It's also showing 0 watts right now. If I turn on all 5 bulbs, we read 47 watts. So that seems to be the threshold. So now that we got it reading something, we can just yank the power out of this thing and see if the light flickers. Here we go. Nothing. The reason being, this guy charges at 500 watts. This guy can output 2000 watts. So even if you're charging, you can't supply all the current with this power adapter. What it's constantly doing is charging with 500 watts and then taking it out of the battery. In a way, this might put more wear and tear on your battery. But the advantage of this is you have no switchover time. It's always on. Some power banks actually have the AC adapter built into the unit. At first, I thought, hey, that's kind of nice, right? Because you got it all in one single package. You only need to plug this cable into the power station. The disadvantage is if this unit within this power bank ever goes bad, you can't just buy a new one. If you use it at 2000 watts, it's gonna get quite warm and it's gonna warm up this thing. When it's charging, this thing is gonna warm up the battery. So all this hot stuff being put together, it's not so good for each of these things. So that's the trade-off. You might wanna choose to have one or the other. For convenience, you put it together. For more reliability, you want it separated. How much capacity do you think you can actually use from it? The inverter inside that converts all that DC electricity to AC is going to consume about 20 to 30 watts. So the longer that you use it, the more energy it would consume doing nothing other than having the AC on. If you have the AC on, nothing plugged in, it's going to reduce the capacity about 1% every single hour. So I got it charged to 100% and we're gonna plug this energy monitor in. I have a hacked up version of a neutral to ground bond plug. This is necessary to trick my car charger to think that it's plugged into the wall. Here's my car charger, and let me plug it in. 12 amps is 1,400 watts, so we can empty it in about an hour and a half or so. I was able to add 6 miles to my car. This is about 1,500 watt hours. We clocked in at 1.8 kilowatt hour output, so this is actually pretty good. About 90% usable capacity. And note that it drained all the way to 0%. Now I'm gonna plug in the power supply using 478 watts. After the AC adapter, it becomes 421 watts. 2,515 watt hours in here. 12.1% loss going from here to here. Putting a meter at the AC output, I was able to clock 1,801 watt hours. So that's pretty good. It's only a difference of about 10%. There's some conversion loss from within the inverter. So to me, 10% loss is completely reasonable and it's within range for most high quality power banks. So the amount of energy I was able to put in my car is between 1,500 and 1,750 watt hours. Between charging from the wall to the output usable energy of this inverter, you're looking at a 29.1% loss. So if you're doing any kind of energy time shifting, you should understand that you better save more than 30% in order to make it worth your while. This is a 500 watt charger. Some power banks of this capacity can charge insanely fast, like 1,500 watt, 1,800 watts. And this is good for emergency scenarios where you want to go somewhere, not spend a lot of time charging because you have access to power somewhere. You just plug it in and you don't want to wait very long, but you want to fill up your entire battery bank and then leave. If you have a time of use energy schedule where it's a lot cheaper during certain times of the day, in those cases, you might want to tailor this power bank to charge at the low cost times and then not use any energy at the high cost time and dump it out of this guy. In time of use cases, you still have a long time frame to charge this power bank, so you don't necessarily need it to charge within 1 hour or so. There's a drawback with charging fast. It's not like the faster, the better, because you're pumping so much energy in, things get warm, and if you do this habitually, it's gonna reduce the lifetime of your battery. This is the front panel. Solar car charging input, AC adapter input. If we click on each one of these, it will show you voltage, amp, watts, kilowatt hour, even carbon dioxide emissions. The DC load right now is on, so there's a voltage here, but it will show you the amperage and the wattage of each individual port. The AC input adapter, 55.4 volts, 8.1 amps, a total of 449 watts charging. You got the AC load. I got nothing plugged in, but it's 120 volts out, 60 hertz. If you click on the middle, this is the internal BMS information. It's really cool that it shows 54.4 volts internal voltage. It's charging at 7.6 amps, 63% state of charge. It's charging right now, and if I disconnect the charger, it goes to standby. Let me plug it back in. About 7 seconds later, it goes back to charge. If you go to settings, you can select AC output voltage, 100 or 120 volts, AC output frequency, 50 or 60 hertz, DC input source, solar or car. This is very, very important. I wish they have a different port for each one of these, because if you select solar and you connect your car to it, I don't know what will happen, but I think it might draw more than 100 watts and it might trip a fuse. You can select eco mode, yes or no. Go next, language setting, buzzer setting, the date and time. Now for data, you got the product information, firmware numbers, inverter charger info. This is the same stuff as on the main page, see? And then fault history. I purposely tripped it and made it over wattage, so it has 2 fault codes. And then we have faults over here. And I really like how extensive this is. Look at all this stuff that it checks for. Solar over voltage, low voltage, over current, output short circuit, adapter over voltage, low voltage, relay failure over current. Here's the next page, next page, next page, and I like this one the most, inverter overload. So this was highlighted when I overloaded the inverter, and also inverter output short circuit. Communication errors, BMS temperature error, over voltage, low voltage, over current, and this is the last page. I hope this video helps you understand a little bit more about portable power stations and helps you shop more effectively if you're looking for one of these. This is the BlueTti AC200P. If you're interested in this power bank, check out my affiliate link down in the video description below. Thanks for watching this video. Until next time.